What's up, boys? We have some good news because our favorite Nintendo fanboy is back, known as Harman Smith. So basically, Harman Smith uploaded a video talking about Hi-Fi Rush is getting flopped, and somehow it was a colossal failure because it's Xbox exclusive. Now, before we should go into the main topic, we're going to the side topics. So the side topic today is the notorious Nintendo fanboy LDTVYT still doesn't upload anything, but somehow he's going to stream again, or maybe I think he's going to stream Tears of the Kingdom when the game is out, or basically he's gonna make a city unboxing video torturing his box just like his previous videos, wasting over $60 or $70 of Nintendo exclusives. I am not going to show the clip because this fanboy is quietly aggressive when it comes to abusing copyright strikes like Nintendo. I also used his videos way back a year ago and it got taken down for stupid reasons, just like Tickle TV. Also, isn't that interesting? He doesn't give a fuck about the Tears of the Kingdom got leaked and somehow Nintendo fanboys are losing their shit. Meanwhile, this notorious Nintendo fanboy is still inhaling some copium due to this news, and somehow he never make a rant about the leak just like Harman Smith does. And now this is the end of the side topic, and now we are moving to the main topic for this video. Without further ado, let's get straight into this terrible video.
Hello everyone, this is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of I, the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful Rabbit Hole lore inferring the upcoming John the Dragon.
I am saying this for the fourth time, nobody cares about your stupid books that no one buys. And also your video and audio is getting worse and worse, please get a fucking life.
So game journalists have revealed information that I was talking about a week after launch of Hi-Fi Rush, in that the fact is, the game bombed. There is no denying it, there is no disputing this. This was always like on the table, this was always very clearly evident, like there were numbers that suggest this. People like ignored me, they tried saying that everyone was playing the game on Game Pass.
I mean, Hi-Fi Rush is a great game and technically it was a silent release that surprised everyone. And yeah, people are going to ignore you because you are a Nintendo fanboy and nobody cares about your opinions about why Hi-Fi Rush is bad and play Nintendo exclusives instead.
You know, people were saying this was a huge success, it was a huge hit, it shit all over Forspoken, or Flopspoken as they called it.
Yes, Harman. Hi-Fi Rush outperforms Forspoken because that game is an absolute train wreck, and somehow the Luminous Productions shut down their own studio because the game flops.
This was one of the games of the year, even though it came out in January before we got games like Fire Emblem Engage, games like Octopath Traveler 2, Horizon the Lost Demon, Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp, and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which is in all likelihood going to be the real game of the year.
To be fair, Hi-Fi Rush and Tears of the Kingdom should be contenders from Game of the Year 2023. But mostly you mentioned some other Nintendo exclusive games that should be contenders from Game of the Year 2023. It will not going to be a win eventually.
Like, there was this very big push, coordinated push, to present this idea that Hi-Fi Rush was this, like, great game from Tengu Gameworks.
Tengu Gameworks? It's pronounced Tango Gameworks. Oh my god, how did you mess that up with your terrible pronunciation?
And it was a huge hit in the making, it was a huge cult classic, it was just do gangbusters, and I immediately wrote this off what it was. You know, it was a shield campaign, right? Just like that campaign earlier this year where people tried to pretend the last was good, just like the one last year with Cyberpunk Edge Runners and like, the patch fixed Cyberpunk 2077, it's a good game now, like that whole shebang, you know, like, you know, the typical pattern we see every time that like the establishment wants to push a specific product onto us is that they just get a bunch of people, you know, YouTubers, influencers, bots, to try and spam message boards and try to like spend a couple of weeks to inorganically talk about a product that nobody cares about.
Technically, Forspoken was never in the fucking table because the game is an absolute disaster. The reason why YouTubers love Hi-Fi Rush is because it was really good than other AAA games because it launched terrible just like Jedi Survivor. Hi-Fi Rush reviews on Steam was overwhelmingly positive than Forspoken.
And in this case, it was Hi-Fi Rush, right? You know, a mediocre beat-em-up from the creators of actually good games. You know, games like God Hand, Vanquish, you know, people who have a background in making really good action games.
Tango Gameworks are not the developers who made God Hand and Vanquish. God Hand was developed by Clover Studio and Vanquish was developed by Platinum Games.
So the fact is, if you were like familiar with this team, what Tengu Softworks Tango Softworks, I don't ever even GameWorks. They even, if you knew what they've been putting out for the past 10 years, you would not have been in any way invested in this game or what they were doing.
This Nintendo fanboy tells you to not play Hi-Fi Rush because it's a bad game and you should never get interested to it because it's bad. How many copium gas did you inhale this morning?
Right, you would have known that it's been that they've always put out mediocrity. They've always been making mistakes. They've always been like doing all this stuff. They've always like just fallen far short of their potential, especially after like the initial success of Platinum Games or what they were doing. Like the Evil Within was a disaster. Everything the company has done has been bad.
Tango Gameworks games are not very mediocre. Ghostwire Tokyo was received pretty okay and the reviews on Steam was very positive. But sadly, Ghostwire Tokyo was receiving bad reviews because of third-party DRM added onto the new update. Hi-Fi Rush was their first most successful games that ever made, and it received pretty well.
In essence. And nobody wants to admit it because it's not a Nintendo-affiliated brand, and this is like, a Microsoft-owned studio now, and people were really trying to push this narrative that, like, this was eventually going to be a major studio for Xbox.
Ah yes, he's been complaining about that the studio itself was not affiliated by Nintendo because the game is terribly bad. And somehow that Hi-Fi Rush is a really bad game on his stupid opinions that nobody cares about except me because this Nintendo fanboy is very delusional.
And look what happened. They put out a shill campaign, they made this like budget action game, they tried like presenting this narrative like they did with Sunset Overdrive that like, oh man, look how wacky and surreal this is, and nobody really cared.
To be fair, you don't need a realistic graphics like every AAA games have. Budget games and especially indie games are killing AAA games because they don't want to waste their money over a $70 AAA game with unfinished state full of bugs and performance issues. Meanwhile, indie games have over $10 to $15, have better experience, and it's cheaper and enjoyable.
There was an initial wave of praise and attention, but now it's completely fallen by the wayside, and all we have are the cold hard facts. That the game did not do very well.
Check the fucking reviews on Steam and it is overwhelmingly positive. Are you fucking blind?
Xbox Game Pass does not save games like this. People need to stop pretending that like normal people are like scrolling through Xbox Game Pass like playing everything that comes out, because that does not happen.
I mean, if I had a Game Pass, what I do is play games, find an interesting title that I want to play, and chill. I'm not going to scroll down like a fucking porn addict who used the cancerous app called TikTok.
It just doesn't. Just getting through like the Yakuza games alone, like you can look at Yakuza trophies trophies on Xbox, right? And you can see just how many people like play Yakuza and then just drop it immediately when they realize it's not a AAA game.
I mean, AA games exist. Look at A Plague Tale Requiem, a well-received game. It is almost like a AAA game, but it's not like the recent AAA games. What we see today is a broken, unplayable, filled with bugs and performance issues. I don't think Yakuza games are AAA games, but according to my research, I think it's unidentified, or maybe I'm just dumb to understand.
Right? You can see. I'm sure you can see that with Hi-Fi Rush and essentially every other game on Game Pass. Like, if people tried Hi-Fi Rush, they played it for a couple of seconds and then just dropped it. It's not typical for Xbox Game Pass fans to stick with any of these games for any length of time. And as a result of that, like, by what metric can Hi-Fi Rush be considered a success?
Some people tried Hi-Fi Rush and it is really good and it's worth to play. Unlike Forspoken with bad story with cringy dialogue and a soulless cash grab costs $70. Well, Hi-Fi Rush costs over $30 on Steam and played for free on Xbox Game Pass if you're subscribed to their game service. And yes, that game is a huge success because many people liked it.
Like how exactly, you can't even say you got the money from consumers because it's locked behind a subscription service. So nobody's playing the game, nobody's enjoying it, nobody gets any real value out of it.
Again, Hi-Fi Rush is available on Steam, Xbox Game Pass, and the game is not locked to a subscription service. The only thing that I see is a game locked to a subscription service is basically Nintendo Switch Online, because those old Nintendo games are only able to play is to subscribe their horrible subscription service cost $50 to play those old Nintendo games.
I would be mad too. You know, like looking at this, like seeing this push, but like to try and push a product that was niche, that had a small audience, as like this big mainstream thing, it just doesn't really work out very well. You know, it just makes you look like you're trying too hard, and that like you don't have a real leg to stand on.
Every single indie games had different style to make it look like this. Ultra Kill is the best indie movement shooter with bad graphics, and many people like it because it is fast paced and it's mixed with Devil May Cry and Quake. Puppet Combo's horror games receive good reviews because the graphics looks like the PlayStation 1 era, and it somehow nails the environment and the atmosphere too, including nostalgia. And then we have Hi-Fi Rush, a AA game that everybody love it because the game combined with Sunset Overdrive and Devil May Cry and other games you wanted to combine each other.
Because like, oh, look at this game, isn't it unique and different? Why aren't you making more games like it? If it's so successful and so popular, why is this not like standard for Xbox? You know, like, and the answer is just, it's not all that popular. Like,
how many times I have to say this, Harman? Hi-Fi Rush received overwhelmingly positive reviews and many people like it because it is very enjoyable, unlike other AAA games that has been released today.
Everything Xbox does is doomed to failure, right? You know, that extends just past Hi-Fi Rush. Like, all of my issues with this don't really, Hi-Fi Rush itself doesn't have anything to do with it.
So basically you're saying that Hi-Fi Rush is a bad game because it's Xbox exclusive and it's going to fail like Redfall. Like Redfall's launch was atrociously terrible, but Hi-Fi Rush launch was really good at all and it outperforms Forspoken.
Right, like I think this was an attempt at like trying to sell people on Game Pass, right? Like look at this game that came out of nowhere, released on Game Pass, and ooh, everyone's talking about it for a couple of weeks. Download Game Pass and you can get it right now for free. It didn't work. You know, it fell flat on its face.
Hi-Fi Rush is available on Steam and Xbox Game Pass, and it is not locked over a subscription service.
I'm curious if anyone else has noticed this or has brought it up at all. I think very few people like acknowledge that Hi-Fi Rush was a bomb.
You are the only person saying that Hi-Fi Rush is locked over a Game Pass service because the game did not go well, and especially PlayStation fanboys hating this game because it outperforms Forspoken because those Sony ponies are start crying about it because their exclusive went into a failure.
Right from the get-go, like I did. I think most people were like adamantly like defending the game right until just recently. When it now that it's time to like shill for like the PlayStation titles, like we're seeing people like turn their backs on Hi-Fi Rush and trying to talk up like Resident Evil 4 remake, and you know that'll be for eventually like pushed to the side in order to promote something else. It never ends with these people, right? They're not actually interested in talking about cool, new, interesting games. They just want to sell you on products. And that is why you cannot trust.
I mean, basically it applies to every single AAA game is coming out this year and launched with a broken mess and performance issues. So basically, Harman Smith claims that Hi-Fi Rush was a failure because the game was locked over a subscription service. Meanwhile, we can buy the game on Steam and it costs over $30. Basically, this Nintendo fanboy went on high and thinking that Hi-Fi Rush is still a massive failure, but mostly he can handle the true facts and still coping about Hi-Fi Rush was a great game, but it isn't. Anyways, I really don't care about the rest of the video, so this is the end of the video. If you did enjoy, please leave a like and consider subscribing to my channel. Please don't send any hate for Harman Smith and LDTVYT, it's really unneeded. Until next time, signing out.